Hello out to all you wonderful people. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ear listening into another Pitch for Switch discussion. And this one's going to be about Jewel Master Resurrected. Or Resurrection. I think Resurrection makes more sense. And for this, it would be a full-on remake of the original Jewel Master from the Sega Genesis. So for that, I have to explain to you how the original Jewel Master worked and then go from there as far as what I would add to update the game and why I'm specifically choosing Nintendo Switch for this. So first, old school Jewel Master, you start out with, I believe, the fire ring and water ring. I know the fire ring was used for attack. A single water ring, I believe, it gives you a shield that protects you. It doesn't really protect you very well from damage, but that's what it was for. So you have those rings. There are 4 levels to the rings, if I remember correctly. So you have 4 fire rings, 4 water rings, 4 wind rings, and 4 earth rings. Wind had a multitude of different purposes, from speeding you up to double jumps, and then you could combine ring powers back and forth in order to get different effects. So how the original game worked was that you were allowed to put 2 rings on each hand, and you had a different button that corresponded to the different hand. So that would allow you to combine water and wind, or wind and fire and stuff like that, or earth and fire, in any combination of which you could figure out something that works. And when you put elements that are opposite of each other's together, opposite of each other together, they cancel each other out if they are at the same level. Otherwise, you just get the weakened version of what you had already used. You get the weakened version of the stronger ring you used. If I remember correctly, it's been a while since I played it. I'm probably going to have to play it again for this. So, again, it's just me going off the top of my head. Now, I would love to keep those items in the game, keep those rings in the game. I'd also add other rings to it. I'd add a lightning, maybe a light and a dark ring that have different purposes, just so that you have more options for play. I would still keep the individual stage scenarios. I would take the stages and expand them and potentially turn it into a Metroidvania style game. So you still have all of these areas, but now you can travel between them. It's not you finish a level, then you move on. You can finish a level, move on to the next level, but there will be different items in different sections that you can go get. Which that was a failing of the original Jewel Master, because if you missed any of the rings, you were screwed. That you could not beat the game. You could not beat the game because you needed all of the most powerful versions of those rings. So that is something that would have to be considered, and that's why I would say choosing a Metroidvania style makes more sense, because then you can open up this game to being able to do more things. Like, I would also add in mechanics this game never had, like the ability to run. Now, again, that was one of the reasons that the wind rings existed, because one of them let you move faster. I would keep that ability for the ring, but I would also add in a run mechanic for the character so that you can traverse a lot more quickly, especially since it would be Metroidvania. That would be a boost. It'd be something nice to have. Which, obviously, I would keep all of the, I would keep all the original bosses that were in there, but also add some extra bosses that are themed to the areas, like the ones that were already in the game. So instead of there being one boss in the forest area, there could be 3 because of the different routes that you'd have to be able to take, and because, again, it's a Metroidvania instead of one boss for the sand area, you'd have 2 or 3. Again, just because you would be expanding upon what the game does and what it allows. Now, I'm trying to think, and I would add in a leveling system for your characters, so obviously your stats and defenses and stuff like that would all get boosted based on the level of experience you have. Now, I don't know what I would cap the levels at, but hey, if you got the time and patience to build your levels up, why not have a high level? But the gimmick for defeating the final boss in this game, I would leave it exactly the same. I would leave it exactly the same. But only in this case, instead of 2 rings on each hand, you're allowed 4 because you have 4 fingers. So 4 rings on each hand, and whatever combination you can create out of the rings that you could put on a single hand, that's what you get. Which I know that would take a lot of work to figure out what 3 ring and 4 ring combinations bring out and what they do. Or even if you just take one series of an element to one hand, how big that would make that power grow. Because essentially, each ring doubles in power versus the previous one of its same element. So, Fire 2 is twice Fire 1. Fire 3 is twice Fire 2. And then Fire 4 is twice Fire 3. If we're using that as an example. So I would wholeheartedly love to see what can be made and what can come out of this scenario. So like if you have all of the wind rings on your hand, can you possibly just create storm tornadoes? Or if you have all of the wind rings on one hand and then all of the lightning rings on another, could you create like a hurricane with a thunderstorm? Or you've replaced the wind with water, do you create a rainfall situation? Again, this opens up possibilities for people to run with so many different ideas, and that it could expand on what Jewel Master was. And I would be all for it. Especially if we took specifically the Castlevania Symphony of the Night approach to it. Like you need the rings to get to certain places, or you need certain rings to upgrade your abilities to get to certain places. That would be cool. That would be very cool. Or you need a certain number of the same level of ring in order to open certain doors. Like there's ways to utilize this mechanic that could be very, very interesting. And on top of that, make people search hardcore for all of those rings. And then with this, you can make it more difficult to find them. I mean, depending on who you were, the rings were difficult as hell to find in Jewel Master in the first place. And if you missed them, you were screwed. Because you could get to the end boss, but you couldn't beat the end boss. You couldn't even damage the end boss if you didn't have all the rings and you didn't know how to use them. So, for me, I'm looking at that like, damn, that'd be some treacherous shit to have that be the case. Now, I would make it so that you could reach the final boss without the most powerful rings. You wouldn't be able to fight him, but you could reach him. you could reach him, and you'd have to learn real quick why you need those rings. But it will give you the option to leave the area. And obviously, they would need to have save points in this game, so that you can save your position and you can do whatever backtracking you need. Potentially a fast travel system. Again, that's why I would do something very similar to Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So that way you can hop around between the areas quickly. So I mean, I would definitely want to see how this plays out. I would love to see this, and I'm pretty sure Sega and Nintendo could come up with something. There are plenty of examples out there already that give you a pretty decent base idea to work from, and it's not like Nintendo doesn't have Metroid. So again, this would be something easy for them to put together if they worked on it. But that's it for me. I'm not going to drag it out too much more. And if anybody finds this interesting, let me know. Or if you got any ideas that you could throw into the pot, go ahead and do so. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening and keep your eyes and ears out for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out, everybody.